Welcome to Entrepreneur Life with me, Joel Campbell. I am an entrepreneur, and let's kick off and crack on. Today, slightly different. I'm not even going to talk about that. It has been an interesting week the last week. There's been not many downs, which is good. So I'm going to just take you through pretty much what my week looked like. I might even use my diary because that helps me keep me on point. And I've had half a cup of coffee. So as you can tell, I'm pretty kind of like there and I'm on it. I spent half of my week last week in Somerset. So I went down to Somerset the weekend before. I spent 3 days down there, which meant I went to visit the oldest prison in the world. If you haven't been, it is amazing. I went on Monday, oldest prison in the world, Shepton Mallet Prison. It was absolutely phenomenal. I was bowled over by how great it was. Of course, I would say that because I own it. And I still think it is a little bit weird to just take a second and remember that you own the oldest prison in the world. Owning a prison is weird anyway. It is a bit bizarre and it's become super casually used. I'm really used to it, so I'm very casual about it. But it is weird. And whenever I tell that to people, they're like, how did you buy a prison? And I love that question because I always answer it with a really facetious answer, which is, well, you see, it was for sale. And so I always do it like that. But owning the oldest prison in the world is, I would say, more of a responsibility than a claim. And I always feel with both Shrewsbury and Shepton that we're custodians of history and heritage, and it's our responsibility to look after them, to be passed on to someone else. And our job during our time as custodians is to improve them and ensure that they stand the test of time, i.e. they don't fall down, basically. And we've chosen to showcase and share them and create them into visitor attractions. That's what we do. So I was down in Shepton. I spent some time with our attraction director, Charlie. We actually were looking at what other uses we can use the prisons for, because predominantly we use them as tourist attractions. I've spoken about this a little bit recently. As an attraction company, those Cove Attractions, we only use about 20% of our entire real estate, which means where Shrewsbury and Shepton are about 3.5 acres each, we're only using 20% of that real estate for the attraction. So the rest of it is all there to be used. So we've got another 80% still to work on, still to develop, and still to get usage out of. So we spent some time looking at that. We had a couple of meetings with different people from around the town, because it's really good to get different ideas about what we could do with the buildings, because we love to think we know everything in it, but we don't. And other people come up with other ideas, other thoughts, other concepts. And sometimes they just give us a passion to think about what else we could do. That was Monday. And Tuesday, I went and saw our accountants, and I spent 3 hours with our accountants, very much talking about kind of where we are, but really most of it was all about forward planning. And it had become very clear that what we need is a CFO level of support. So what we need is a CFO level of support, which ultimately is about how we're going to report on where we are financially. It's a bit more complicated for us now because we're 6 companies, so they're all doing different types of business at different points. So I'm always trying to see what the group looks like as opposed to necessarily an individual business, whereas we've got people that look at the individual business, and we nail the individual business piece okay, but we don't necessarily get the group bit quite right. And we're at a stage where very soon we're going to start doing more development work. We've got 80%, like I say, to develop. So we're going to need to start looking at how we're going to raise additional capital, how we're going to do the investment piece, what that's all going to look like. And that's all very much a financial planning model. And therefore, we really need somebody in that world with that caliber that can support us through that journey. So that was kind of Tuesday, really, was just going through those conversations, looking at the various options and figuring out what we were going to kind of do. And I guess that I always knew that it was going to come, and I'd always expected that we would appoint a CFO, that we would just employ somebody in-house. The reality is it's really, really expensive to get a really good quality CFO. We're probably looking 60 60,000 a year as a starting point. And I just think that we can utilize our accountancy firm, there's a big accountancy firm and another company that they own within that firm to support us with all those bits we need, because we don't need always on CFO. We need a number of things in place because we have a lot of day-to-day finance. We have day-to-day finance taken care of in-house, that bookkeeping, that financial control piece, all taken care of. What we need is the strategic level of input, but we're not quite of a size where we can necessarily afford, or I guess really, what's the best word for it? We don't need it quite full-time, and therefore we don't need the full-time salary. So that's the benefit of outsourcing, is you can up and down as you need. That was Tuesday. What did I do Wednesday? Wednesday I went to Oxford. I went to Oxford Brookes University because I'm part of a mentor program where I mentor different students from Oxford Brookes University doing like events and tourism and management degrees. Most of them in the hotel world. Met with the guys that I'm going to mentor for the next semester, effectively, or for the next term. So went there, listened to some really interesting talks from other mentors about what they do, about their businesses and stuff like that. So that was a really cool day. And I took my family with me because they travelled with me. So we all went down to Somerset together, stayed in Wells in Somerset, and then we all went to Oxford together. I did that, and Emma then home-edited with the kids in Oxford University. So literally sat in the university campus, which looks really odd because there's students everywhere. And then there's a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old sat at desks kind of doing their work. And yeah, it looks really, really funny. I don't think I've got any photos of it, so I do apologise, but I'll have a quick check, and if I have, I will send them over. So that was what I did Wednesday. And then Thursday, I went to the NEC because there was a leisure and tourism show. So I went there, which I do every year. And again, the kids come with me, Emma comes with me. And this year was crazy because Delaney and Jonah went for the first time last year and hadn't realised that there were shows where you can go around and chat to people and you kind of get freebies effectively. So this year they were well on that, and Jonah went and met so many different people. He's had so many emails this week from where people had scanned his badge. And in fairness to the lad, he also he's sourced us a whole brand new line of cuddly toys to go into our attractions that will be coming to attractions soon. And what was interesting off the back of that was then Saturday morning, I sat with him in a cafe, and I had a coffee, he had a Coke, and we talked about how this works. So we created a spreadsheet and we worked out all the products that he thought we should stock. We looked at how much they are net price. We looked at how much we sell them for. We worked out the VAT. We worked out the margins. And then we scaled up. If we sold this many per day or this many per day or this many per day, how much would we therefore generate in profit in the week? So he was then doing that. And then he had to look at minimum order quantities, and he had to think about how many we were going to stock and how many we were going to hold in stock and all that kind of stuff. So that, to me, is true home education. So that was basically that. Friday, I went to get my tattoo finished. So that has been that's been a journey of so many years, because I've been wanting to do this for years and years and years. And in true typical Joel fashion, I went about it by going to a tattoo artist and going, hey, look, this is kind of what I'm thinking. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And this is kind of what I'm thinking, but I'm not quite sure exactly how it looks. And they were like, cool. So they designed it for me. They drew it out for me, sketched it out, looked great. Then we worked on some colorings and stuff like that. And in the end, I was like, do you know what? I just trust you. Just crack on with it. And that's exactly what's happened. And I think it looks cool. It's still healing, so I had it done a few days ago. I might let Jordan put a photo of it onto the end before it goes out, make a huge thing about it. There's a couple of bits I'm like, maybe I'm not quite sure about that color or that color, but I'm pretty sure they can go over it. So I think they can do that. It'll be fine. But that was that. However, on Friday, I did have the difficult news when I came into work, which is really, really unfortunate because Chloe, my assistant, is decided to move on. So she actually said to me on Friday that she's going to be leaving in a couple of months. And that's due because she's off traveling. So she's off to New Zealand, to a great country. And I'm absolutely gutted by it. But at the same time, I can understand why she's going to do that. And that happened first thing in the morning, and then I went to go to my tattoo appointment. So I actually filmed a little clip on the way through. She's taking another year out and going off to travel. She's not quite finished with that yet, which I think is absolutely amazing. And she's going to one of my favourite places in the world as well. So I can't hold that against her. I'm super, super pleased for her. I really am. I couldn't be more made up, and I think that everybody should do those things, and ideally you should be in a position to be able to do those things. I think that's great. I'm absolutely gutted. Didn't really know what I needed, what I expected. It was completely unknown to me, and we've found a lovely groove, but also found a style and a requirement that works for me and for my business, and I trust her implicitly. So that's just so important. If you have an assistant, or you're thinking of getting an assistant, and you get a good one, it's a game changer. So that has now left us in a situation where I can't see a world where I don't have that assistant that support me. Has been so useful over the last few months that I feel like it's just a role that I need. So I'm going to be recruiting for that now. And Chloe will support me with that because she's been doing it. So she's really well placed to do that and to support with that journey. And we've got a number of other roles as well that we're looking to recruit at the moment, which will be coming out soon. We're going to have an events and experience lead, which will be coming out across all of our attractions. We're going to look at some stuff in marketing. We've got some other bits to look within the attractions. There's an assistant manager role and bits and pieces like that. So we've got a few things that we're going to move on over the coming months. And there's quite a lot of development happening as well within the buildings, which I spoke about earlier. So we've got some developments going to be happening at Shrewsbury soon. We've got some small little bits happening at Shepton. And really, I've been working on the back end of the week in terms of how I plan out, along with our COO, what our next steps are and what those plans look like. And what was interesting for me was going to the show on Thursday. I listened to lots of other businesses and business owners talking about what they're doing in their journeys. And that made me look at it and go, oh my God, that's a great idea. We should do that. Or we're already doing that. We should enhance it further. Or I hadn't thought quite that aspect. And it allowed me just to pivot slightly and take on board other avenues, other thoughts, other opportunities. But I also heard some things I just completely disagree with. And I'll share one of them with you because they said it publicly. So I'll share it. And that was the guys from Tully's. My coffee's gone cold. But the guys from Tully's were talking, and they were talking about how they do their different levels of customer service and how they do different aspects of their building. And one thing they said to me that really stood out was that in their height of the season, they have 6 people on the phones to answer phones and deal with customer questions and queries. It was really interesting because the way they positioned that was in a world where, their words, not mine, in a world where everybody's moving away from phone calls, they're doing the opposite. They're embracing it, and they're actually putting more people on to answer phones, whereas everyone else is taking away from it. And in one instance, I really agree with that. I love that challenging the status quo and looking at a different way of doing it and thinking, actually, is that the right way, or should we do it like this? No one else is embracing this, should we? And whilst I applaud that, and it definitely is my style of thinking, I also kind of just felt like that was, for us, that's the wrong direction to go. And I sort of worked my way backwards because I was thinking, God, 6 people, 6 salaries to answer the phone. And then it made me think, what are these people ringing for? Like, why have you got so many phone calls coming in? There must be something in your process that I would say is broken to be receiving that many phone calls. Because the demographics of a younger generation, and I'm talking about everything sort of pre-40, I'm going to say 48 and under, they don't do phone calls. They check everything online. They check everything on Google searches, on AI, on socials. They'll check it all in places like that, and they'll look for all the information online before making a call. The older market absolutely will still try and ring. But Tully's don't attract that older market necessarily. They're in a younger demographic. So I was like, what is it in your journey that I think is that broken that you have to get that many phone calls? So it wasn't that it wasn't necessarily about the challenging of it. It was like, why do you get that volume? And if you can fix that, you wouldn't need those 6 people, and you can employ those 6 people somewhere else to deliver. And to me, that just felt more sensible. Because one of the things we're going to do as a business is we're looking at how we remove the phones from our business, which might sound counterintuitive, but actually, when we look at, I can't believe I'm talking about this now. When we look at the calls that we get, we actually question, do we even need a phone? So when we talk about the customer incoming calls, we get a number of calls about bookings through one specific line, which is through Virgin vouchers, but we could automate that. That could be far easier automated, and it's better for the customer and better for us. And actually, most of the calls that we then get are people saying like, I'm running late, or I'm coming at this point, but this has happened, or this has happened. And I was kind of chatting through with some of the team. I was like, well, if you're running late, you're running late. If you ring us and tell us, that's great. It's nice for us to know, but at the same time, it doesn't change anything. Because if you ring us and say, you're going to be 10 minutes late, you're going to be 10 minutes late. We're still going to start the activity at the same time, because our activities are booked for multiple people. So if you tell us you're going to be 10 minutes late for a guided tour, you're going to miss the first 10 minutes of the guided tour. We're not going to hold it back for you. We're going to start it, and then you're very welcome to join it when you arrive. And somebody challenged me on that, saying, well, do you think that's the right approach? Should we not hold the tour back? And I was like, well, if you've got a tour of 32 people and 2 people are 10 minutes late, do you tell the other 30 they're going to wait for 10 minutes? And there was sort of some internal discussion, so I reframed it. I went, okay, let's say we're not coming on a tour, but you're going on holiday and you're on your way to the airport. If you're running late, do you ring up the airline and go, I'm running 10 minutes late, please hold the plane for me? You don't, because you can't, but even if you could, they wouldn't hold the plane, they'd take off, because they've got a schedule to keep, because that's the time that they've set, that's what you've booked for, and they have to keep that schedule for all the other passengers and everything else that's happening on that day. We're no different, nor is any other attraction, and therefore we sort of have to make that decision. We do have to make that decision. So it was that case of, no, if you're running late, that sucks, and we're really sorry you're running late, and we will do everything we can to make sure you have the best experience. And if that means that we can put you onto the next tour and you get the full tour, we'll do that, absolutely. But if you're running late and that's the experience you're going to do, we'll put you on it still. You'll just miss the beginning part. So yeah, that was kind of why we get phone calls. But we don't get a lot of phone calls other than that. So actually removing those 2 things, I think will probably free us up about half an hour per attraction per day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if we free up 30 minutes per attraction per day, that's an hour and a half a day. So that's going to be 10 hours a week effectively, something like that, 10 hours a week? Yeah, about 10 hours a week. Suddenly that's 40 hours a month. That's more roles. That's another whole job that we can put in place over the course of that month and redeploy those people into different places to enhance the business and enhance people's visit. And that's kind of, I guess that probably rounds it off quite nicely. That's really where my mind's been over the last couple of weeks or even couple of months, is thinking about how we improve what we have and grow from where we are, because we've got a nice solid platform and then off we go. And I think that's kind of where we are, and we're looking at how we scale. And really, I've got all of that property to develop, 80% of our property still to develop, and I think we've got an awful lot that we can do better in our attractions. We've got all of that world to go. So I guess my world is focusing inward a little bit, although I know I've got something out coming up this week which is a bit different, so I'll talk about that next week. But that has been pretty much it. As I said, it's been highs and lows of last week, generally very, very positive, generally lots of really good things happening, generally looking really, really nice and good and happy, and the teams are doing really well, so very pleased with all of that. Still work to go. The downside obviously has been that that aspect of I'm going to lose my assistants. That is a real shame. That is really gutting for me. But yeah, outside of that, it's looking up. And hey, you know, I had my midlife crisis and went and got a new tattoo. So I guess that's what my 23-year-old tattoo artist said to me when she was tattooing me. And the second session, she was like, we were just chatting. She went, so is this like your midlife crisis rather than buying a sports car? And I was like, dude, I'm 42. Like, what the fuck? So yeah, and that's kind of how it finished. But she's great. She's a little crazy, which I hope she doesn't mind me saying. But she is great and she's very, very funny. And yeah, and certainly, I absolutely, she's done a brilliant job. So yeah, shout out to Holly who did that tattoo for me. But anyway, that's going to be me for the week. I'm going to crack on. I've got the rest of my day to do before I go off kickboxing. So thank you for listening. This has been Entrepreneur Life with me, Joel Campbell, and I am an entrepreneur.